We'll call this special meeting of the Gainesville City Commission to order, and I appreciate everybody being out early on this Tuesday morning. It's chilly Tuesday morning. It's nice and toasty in here for everybody, unlike most days. All right, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we have the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the agenda as distributed. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, we have our single discussion item 2023-1152, the city auditor candidate interviews, with the recommendation the city commission to interview the city auditor candidates and take action deemed appropriate.
Very good. We all, I believe, had an opportunity to meet with all three candidates yesterday in a round robin process that is always interesting. And today we have the opportunity to have all three in front of all or most of us, and we will move ahead with that. Ms. Gretz, do you want to explain what we're... sorry.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. He's anxious. He's ready to go. It's a good sign. Thank you for having us this morning. As you all are aware, we have been working with Baker Tilly, our executive search firm, for the recruitment of the city auditor. And you all have had an opportunity to meet them individually, but they are here today to meet with you as a panel. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Yolanda Howes, who's the representative from Baker Tilly, to introduce the candidate that she'll be working with this morning.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. As you know, there are Yolanda Housey with Baker Tilly. A pleasure to be here and a pleasure to have worked with you all, along with the wonderful HR department. As you know, there are three finalists for this city auditor position that we presented, and the first candidate that you'll be meeting with collectively today is Thomas Alger. And just want to say, upon an offer to one of the candidates, we will be available to assist you in HR in any negotiation process and contract negotiations as well. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Allen.
Okay, so we have... Hold on a second. I'm going to outline the process for everybody. We'll call you up in just a minute. We have before us a list of suggested questions. Traditionally, the way we have done that is we'll go through each of these questions with each candidate so that everybody's asked the same questions. Does anybody want to add any question to this that we would ask of each candidate? Okay. So what we'll do, unless somebody has a different approach to this, this has worked for us in the past, we start down at the end with question one and just go down the line, and we'll rotate that for the second candidate. So Commissioner Eastman will ask question number one, and for the first candidate, then Commissioner Chestnut will ask question number two. Commissioner Duncan Walker will rotate it around that way for each candidate. And that way everybody's asking a different question, but they are the same questions. Everybody
Sound off on our numbers.
we're probably good. That would just confuse me more. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about how we might proceed here, or are we ready to go? Okay, Mr. Albert, come on in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Mayor. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And let me add before we get started that you have 1 full hour. But just because you have all the time you need doesn't mean you need to take all the time that you have.
Gotcha.
It's entirely up to you. Take the length of time that you feel most comfortable asking the questions. We will give you a full hour. And do you have any questions before we get started about
No, I
process? Okay. All right, Commissioner Eastman, you want to kick us off there?
Thank you, Mr. Alger, for being with us. Can you please provide us with a brief professional introduction and tell us what attracts you to the city auditor position with the city of Gainesville?
Great. Well, thank you. So I have 30 years of audit experience, 10 years in financial services, 10 years in insurance, and 10 years in government. Most recently, I'm working for a Native American tribe, and I audit all of the government activities that they have, and they're essentially a town, and they have a court system and a police department, a fire department, and they also have other businesses that I audit as well. And what brings me to Gainesville. So my wife and I, we're empty nesters. My son's off in college, very proud of him. He's in law school. And my wife and I, we want to move to Florida. So this position here opened up, and it's a perfect match, I think, with Gainesville. And I think I can add value to Gainesville. I think that my audit skills, my audit background, in working in those industries are transferable. And I think I can add value again. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you describe your experience in overseeing and conducting financial, compliance, and performance government audit functions? Please provide examples of significant audits you've led.
Okay, so throughout my annual risk assessment of the organization, I identify the most risky areas or areas that have not been audited for a length of time, or maybe audits that had never been performed in those three areas. And therefore, I prepare a strategic 3-year plan for auditing all of those areas. When that audit plan is approved by the audit committee, I then have staff and myself execute those engagements. And they could be in either one of those three areas. And we go through the normal practice of looking at the planning phase, the audit work paper phase, and the reporting phase. Throughout those three phases, we keep management involved in those three areas. So in the planning phase, definitely my approach on the planning phase is to include the auditee, bless you, in that process by asking them for objectives that they would like to see achieved in this audit. And those would be areas that they have not had the chance to observe, or maybe they've delegated those responsibilities to someone else that we could look at. Additionally, I ask them to identify control weaknesses that they're aware of within their area, and what is their plan to correct those areas of weakness. And then what we can do is include that in the audit report as management has identified these control weaknesses. So that's my approach, is to keep management engaged in the audit, and also no surprises throughout the audit. So if we do find issues, weaknesses, that they're involved immediately. And then in the audit report writing process, definitely I want to keep the proper message. If there are issues, we want to report that. But if they have wording changes, I don't have a problem with that. Thank you.
Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Good morning, Mr. Alger.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
What experience do you have with compliance reviews to ensure operating practices are consistent with applicable ordinances and statutes? In your experience, what is the key to ensuring an organization is compliant with all laws, regulations, and standards applicable to your area of responsibility?
That's a great question. So, all of those compliance type audits, it's really a fresh read of those regulations to make sure that everything is a regulatory issue is still a regulatory issue, or if there are new regulatory issues. So it's ensuring being current with those regulations. We do a fair amount of regulatory reviews in my current position, in my past positions, but it's always, as the chief audit executive, not being in the weeds all the time, it's always that question, gee, did we cover everything that we needed to? So one way that I've made sure that we are addressing all of those requirements, I've prepared a access database where I've listed out all of those regulatory requirements that are required, And then I've had my auditors match up every procedure that they've followed in the audit that achieved that compliance with that regulation. So that's how I ensure compliance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Declan Walker. So, Mr. Auger, can you tell us about a time when you improved the reliability or data integrity of a financial or information system?
Okay. So during every audit that we perform, at least that's what I tell my auditors, we want to make sure, but sometimes it's difficult to do this. But we also invoke, we always try to invoke data analytics in our audits. So what that is looking at the data and extracting out information out of that data and looking for abnormalities in that data. So we may find, like in the preparer and reviewer of documents. So when a document or a transaction goes through an automated process, there's always someone that enters it, the preparer, and there's always a supervisory review as the reviewer. And so one of the tests that we always look at is to make sure that those initials that are in the system are not the same person. So, and if we do see that, then that is a control weakness in the system that needs to be corrected. We have identified those types of situations of abnormalities in the control structure within the operating systems.
Very good. All right, thank you. Mr. Welch.
Describe an audit experience in which you were involved that led to the verification or discovery of fraud, waste, or abuse within an organization, and what was your recommendation? What was the final outcome?
Okay, so in my role, we do find situations of fraud, waste, and abuse. I can't go into them in detail. However, some of the reviews that we've performed maybe would be executive T&E travel and expense reports. So going through those in detail and looking for non-compliance with the regulation and looking at who's reviewing those expense reports is essential. When we do find misappropriations or fraud, waste, and abuse, we then perform more detailed testing, looking at the support in more detail. Also, I was part of a larger examination once where we looked at a vendor that was charging more than what the contractual rates were, and we were able to claw back approximately $2 million from that vendor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Willets. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning again, Mr. Elder. Describe your philosophy in managing employees and give an example of when you set expectations and monitored the performance of subordinates. What guidance and direction did you find most effective?
Okay, so in supervising employees, I try to preserve the autonomy of my managers, so giving them direction and reviewing their work. So on every audit, I review all the work papers to make sure that the standards are up to my standards and also up to the Institute of Internal Auditors standards. As far as the professional growth of the staff, I meet with them on a monthly basis within their own offices to discuss their likes and dislikes about the way that the audit department's being managed. So if they have dislikes, we definitely want to have, or I definitely want to have their solution to those dislikes. I don't get very many because it's a very simple process. We perform audits. But there can be maybe some time off or work from home conversations that take place. As far as the monitoring, again, the reviewing of work papers and the monitoring of the audit plan of when it's getting done. In the past, not in this position right here, I haven't found the need to perform performance evaluations of every audit. But in the past, that was an approach I also took, was performing performance evaluations at the conclusion of every audit. And what that does is give the auditor feedback at the end of each audit as to what they did right and what they could correct or improve on. and but I haven't had that need in this current position. My staff is really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Book. Commissioner Eastman, you're on to number 7, I believe.
Mr. Auger, can you discuss your approach to creating a risk-based audit plan based on the results of an enterprise risk assessment? What factors do you consider when determining which areas to review during a specific period?
Okay, so I have an approach where I examine the regulatory requirements, the financial impact to the organization, whether it's a revenue or an expenditure. I also include the conversations I have with staff, executive members of the team, of management, to understand where they view risk and exposure to the organization. I also look at publicity risk, what has been reported from external parties inward. So I take all of that into consideration, and I produce a document that's more visual than numerical. So I have a document where I look at the entire organization, and then I break it down into divisions, and then where the risk pockets are within those divisions. And then I highlight what we've audited in the past 5 years, and then I produce a 3-year strategic plan to address all of those risk areas that I've noted above.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Commissioner
Thank
Chestnut.
you. Yes. How do you ensure that financial controls and accounting systems are efficient and effective?
Well, it's part of the risk assessment process that we go through, and the identification of audits that are higher risk than others. So traditionally, you definitely want to look at the executive expense reports for fraud, waste, and abuse. That's an area that's customarily done in the audit field profession. Also, ensuring that the procurement function is working as it's intended and the control structure is well designed to prevent any sort of fraud, waste, and abuse. And those types of reviews. Also, payroll is another area that I audit on a regular basis. So those areas help ensure that we have a well-controlled financial basis. I also perform an audit on a periodic basis, looking at the financial close process, ensuring that those reversing journal entries and reoccurring journal entries are happening as appropriate. And so I perform that review every couple of years to make sure that that process is working as intended.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Alger, how do you envision serving the Audit Committee, City Commission, and citizens to provide a transparent and fully accountable government? Share your experience in preparing and delivering quarterly updates and annual reports that communicate the successes and activities of the City Auditor's Office.
Well, the people that do know me, I don't sugarcoat things. So I'm very truthful, very honest. Anyone that we're auditing is fully aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. That would include the commissioners or anyone else that would have a need to know of that information. Some of it would be confidential. Let's say it's an investigation, so that wouldn't be open for people to look at. But I do give my honest opinion, and as you get to know me, you'll understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Duncan Walker. Mr. Auger, can you discuss a time when you identified and highlighted significant risks to an organization, and how did you aid management in addressing these risks through internal controls?
Okay, so in several organizations I've worked for, we've had some weaknesses in the business resumption disaster recovery plan that's supposed to be out there. So in case something really bad happens, how will the company come up to speed, or the government come up to speed to resume? from a systems perspective. And so what I have done is, instead of doing a full-blown disaster recovery audit, what I've done is I've broken that audit up into phases. So the first phase would be, of course, understanding what systems do we need, what hardware do we need, what servers do we need in order to bring the organization back up to running effectively, efficiently.
Okay. Commissioner Willets.
Mr. Auger, how will you establish your presence within the city and develop relationships and protocols necessary to be successful?
Well, I think the most important thing there is to build trust in the organization and get people to know me so that they can trust what I have to say and what the Internal Audit Department can produce. I think that is being very active in the Institute of Internal Auditors, the local chapter. So the auditors in this region get to know me and build trust there. Building trust with the commissioners and the mayor, and also the other executives in Gainesville. Also attending the city events, I think, would be very important to be out there and to be seen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Willets. Commissioner Book.
All right, thank you. If you become our city auditor, what would you hope to accomplish within the first 6 months?
The first 6 months, really getting to know everyone and to build relationships of trust. I think that's really the most important aspect of my position. The block and tackling of internal audit, the internal auditors, as far as I know, they all have certifications. So I'm assuming that they all know what they're doing and how they're doing it. There may be some critiques that I might have on the department, but I think that the department, from what I've heard from everyone here, that it's being run really well. So that's a kudo to the people that are there running it. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Eastman.
There are times when we must all deal with difficult people or conflicts. Tell us how you have dealt with an adversarial citizen, colleague, employee, or elected official, and how you manage the conflict. Explain the steps you went through to resolve the issues.
No. It's a lot of courses around emotional intelligence. So it's basically making sure that you don't put emotion into your decision making and working with those folks. And you just make sure you keep the facts in your forefront and talk about facts. Because some topics people are going to get charged about, and that's human nature. When people get upset with me about a particular topic or an area that we're auditing, I don't get upset about it, because that's what we do. That's what we do. That's what auditors do. So, as far as in working with folks that have been charged or upset about a particular topic or issue, it's really putting the facts out there and saying, okay, we live in the risk and control space. That's our swim lane. And we have a risk, we have a control, we don't have a control, or I can't find a control. If you can show me a control, let's look at it. But you have to be able to produce a control. And if they can't produce a control, it's as easy as on and off. So it's as easy as that. Now, sometimes you run into some gray areas where it's kind of a control, but it's not really a control. But and that has to come down to, well, it could improve. And maybe the issue is not as rated as high as originally thought, but it's still an issue.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Yeah.
I do have a question. I think an extra question will come in right here.
Okay.
With everyone's approval, and make sure it passes Mrs. Gretz's. I know I asked in all the individual one, and that's about experience with Red Book versus Yellow Book, experience, knowledge, feelings, and I think that's square within this job title. So I guess the question would be, describe your experience, knowledge, and feelings about at least those two versions of, I think it's internal auditing procedures or policy, Red Book and Yellow Book. Is that fair, fellow commissioners?
Very
That
good
works.
question.
Let's just make sure we ask it the same way next time.
Right, that's why I'm kind of, do I have it? Can someone help me write that question down so we do it correctly?
Absolutely.
Um,
Could you repeat it?
Yeah. Explain your experience, knowledge, and opinions about
Red Book.
Red Book and Yellow Book procedures, or
Sure. That-
good enough?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not an expert on this, but you're about to tell us things about it. So,
That's fine. Yeah.
thanks.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Answer that question?
Yes, please.
Oh, great. So my predominant experience has been with Red Book, okay? And Red Book is basically the Institute of Internal Auditors professional practice guidelines, okay? So it basically talks about what the internal audit department should do, how we should document our work, how we should perform our work, more of a overview perspective. Yellow Book is very similar to that. It goes into more detail, more explanation as to the supporting documentation that's necessary for the audits, and that's the primary difference. I haven't done a reconciliation between the two, but that's my interpretation as the extent of it. Now, if I did get hired as the city auditor, I would educate myself more on Yellow Book, but they're predominantly the same. They're very similar. I shouldn't say they're the same, but they're very similar in requirements.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Willets. Commissioner Chestnut, you want to wrap us up there?
Yes, sir. Do you have any questions for us, and would you like to make a closing statement?
Well, I after yesterday's interview process of meeting everyone, I've asked all the questions I think I need to ask during those meetings. But as a closing statement, I do believe that I can bring positive value to the city, and that I think I could make Gainesville proud of their city auditor, and that's my closing statement.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any commissioners have any wrap-ups or any comments at this point? Okay. Thank you very much. You sure you're all finished up with us? You're
I'm done.
good? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners.
Yes. Do we want to roll into the next person, or do you want to take a quick recess?
The next person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Could we get that added question printed and just so that we all, whoever
Sure.
asks it the next time around, I ask it that time, but.
Right. Okay. While we're swapping people, we'll go ahead and get that quoted. Hey, Ms. Kretz.
Yes, if I may, Mayor and Commissioners, the next candidate was scheduled to be interviewed at 10 o'clock. I need to make sure that he's arrived.
Okay.
So we'll confirm that and then let you know in just a moment.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we might also alert the third one to probably
Yeah,
arrive
we're
a bit
moving.
early.
Yes, correct. We will
Thank you.
do that, yes.
So, Commissioner Chestnut, you'll lead us off. I don't know.
Casey, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Excellent question.
Yeah.
A little in the weeds compared to kind of. Answer like these questions yesterday. Yeah, so like.
Yeah.
Ask the questions yesterday. I didn't follow
So I've heard Ms. Anderson describe us as Orange Book.
particularly after our
Yeah.
change to ordinance.
Yeah.
me like this.
Just so it's read the same way, and you can put a copy of the spreads.
So we did have some staff members present at the Thomas Center last night to have some conversations. There were a handful of staff members. There were a couple of community participants. She's not here. So. No, she's not there. All right, so that is question 14. And question 15 continue, or is, do you have any questions? So we invited the next candidate to be on at 10 o'clock. And rather than placing him in a difficult position, let's go ahead and recess until 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Go through introductions real quick. We are back in order for this meeting. Mr. Galter, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
The way we'll do this morning is we have a total of 15 questions, and we'll take those one commissioner each and rotate around with those. We'll give it just a second to see if Commissioner Eastman makes it back. Do you have any questions about process before we get started? Commissioner Chestnut, you want to go ahead and start us off here? Yeah, thank you.
Mayor, good morning.
Good morning.
Please provide us with a brief professional introduction and tell us what attracts you to the city auditor position with the city of Gainesville.
Okay. The attraction to the city of Gainesville is threefold. Number one is
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
the attraction to come to the city of Gainesville. I have three reasons why I really would like to get here.
Okay.
First of all is the fact that I like the size of the audit department. It's conducive. It's similar to where I am currently at the city of Dallas. Although the city of Dallas auditor's office has 21 individuals, I'm responsible for 5 individual staff members in terms of all administrative issues, as well as we work as a group in terms of doing audit projects themselves. So the city of Gainesville's size is conducive, exactly the same size, and I like that type of group. Second of all, my sister and I are the only family members of our family. My mom passed away a couple of years ago, and my sister, who lives in California, has realized that she would like to get closer to her brother, and so she's kind of designated Texas, Arizona, and Florida as places she would like to get out of California and move to. So this was one of those places, and we'd like to get together a little closer. She's also done some research of the area, and she likes the area as well as I have. Thirdly, I have spent time in Florida before. When I was in college, I interned with a public accounting firm in Orlando for 3 months, from January to March. And then I did a project for a friend of mine in Orlando from November to the following July. So I've had experience. And also, when I was interning, I became friends with an individual who became the city auditor at Lakeland. And I've stayed in touch with them. I've come to visit them at times. So I've experienced the weather, the hot weather, the humid weather in the summers, as well as the cold weather in the winters. And it's all acceptable to me.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that work?
That's
A little bit louder?
Yeah, that's a little better, yeah. Commissioner Deckenwalker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome back, Mr. Galter.
Thank you.
Can you describe your experience in overseeing and conducting financial, compliance, and performance government audit functions? Please provide examples of significant audits you've led.
Okay. We don't do a whole lot of what you would call financial audits. We are primarily, at the City of Dallas, we do performance audits, which is really looking at the operational aspects of a program, making sure that it's in compliance with the state, federal, or city laws. And then we also look for best practices. But in terms of a financial audit, there are 3 that come quickly to mind. And the first 2 are audits I did in my first 2 years, which were called business partner audits. And in these audits, we looked at various organizations, primarily nonprofit organizations, that were managing facilities at the City of Dallas. And to do those audits, we were looking, first of all, at the departments within the City of Dallas. Were they monitoring the contracts that we had with these different individual entities? Second of all, we then looked at the financial aspects of each of those entities to see if they were financially viable to actually fulfill the contract terms and be able to be in operations to actually provide the services they were supposed to be providing at those facilities. Those audits ended up with a couple of different recommendations. One of them, though, was that we did identify several organizations that were not financially viable. We didn't believe going forward they had some financial issues that they may need to address if they were going to continue to provide the services with that contract. The second one was an audit of the nonprofit organization that promotes the City of Dallas in terms of conventions and tourism, which was called Visit Dallas. I was not the original, I kind of came in as a consultant. This was not originally my job, but because I had a financial background, the in-charge asked me to assist them in the financial aspects of it, letting them know what to ask for in terms of financial records and how to look at them and how to potentially identify issues like fraud, waste, or abuse. Through that audit, we ended up coming up with some recommendations which ultimately got the CFO, the CEO fired, and also the board of directors was reduced from 50 people down to 20 people. And the results were primarily due to the City of Dallas funds them at about $30 million a year, and they were not properly using expense reports. They were running through some personal expenses, and there were some other issues just financially that we ultimately resulted in making recommendations that, as I previously said, got the CFO, the CEO fired. And they also, the city of Dallas, the city council took away about $4 million in funding because we found that they were really not just promoting the city of Dallas, they were actually promoting the DFW region, and we were the only ones really paying for it. So the city council kind of wanted to slap them a little bit in the hands and say, no, if you're not going to promote us, we're not going to give you all the funding needed.
Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Galter, what experience do you have with compliance reviews to ensure operating practices are consistent with applicable ordinances and statutes? And in your experience, what is the key to ensuring an organization is compliant with all laws, regulations, and standards applicable to your area of responsibility?
Okay, first of all, any audit we do, even though they're performance audits, the first thing we always will look for is what type of federal, state, or local laws that particular program needs to be following, because that's the first thing we want to make sure that they are in compliance. From there, then we do look at policies and procedures within that particular program to make sure they're following the internal policies and procedures, and then we look at best practices. As an example, in terms of a compliance audit, I was an assistant with another individual in our office. We did what was called an environmental compliance audit, and what we were looking at was the city's compliance with the oil spills, cleaning up oil spills within the city facilities, and also disposing of scrap tires. In that audit, we actually found a couple of issues with non-compliance with state laws, especially with the scrap tires. The state of Texas has certain specific regulations as to how you have to dispose of scrap tires, that you can only put them in a certain type of truck, you can only have so many in a certain truck, you have to send them to a certain location, and then they have documentation that's required, and the city was not following the proper documentation, getting the hauler to actually sign the receipts, having the hauler verify that they actually delivered them to the required place and that they were properly disposed. We also found that there were a couple of individuals in the city, one of which we suspect what they were doing. We did a sample of the checklist. There's one department that goes out and they actually inspect each of the city's facilities for oil spills, anything else. There's several other things that they're looking at. We look primarily at the oil spill aspect of it. And they have a checklist. We did a sample of those checklists, and we come to find out that this one individual, it seemed like all he was doing was copying the same checklist because it always had the same kind of problems, and just changing the name of the facility that he was using. So we ended up having to raise this to the level of a possible fraud and abuse situation. We got the city attorney's office involved. Ultimately, we came to the conclusion that we didn't have enough supporting evidence to actually terminate the employee or to claim any true fraud, but it was suspectful enough that they did kind of they reassigned the employee to something else.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Willens.
Tell us about a time when you improved the reliability or data integrity of a financial or information system.
Okay. There's two that come to mind, one of which is an audit I was involved in, which was called stormwater billing. And what stormwater billing does is, on your utility bill at the city of Dallas, you also get a charge for runoff of water that goes into the Trinity River, which is called the Permeable Area. And so the city of Dallas is under a cease and desist order with the EPA because they have found that there has been runoff and pollution to the Trinity River. And with that, the city had to develop a plan to prevent that, of which the billing is to fund the prevention and the infrastructure that's put in place to avoid runoffs into the river. The city changed its procedures and kind of updated the way that they were actually billing individual people back in 2016. They had a consulting firm that helped them develop the methodology that they were going to use. That consulting firm also then wrote the software, so this was a customized software. This was not something that was kind of like, as they call, off the shelf. This was actually built specifically for the city of Dallas. So we ultimately then had them run the actual software for us. Now, this software only determines how much each individual individual residence or commercial residence was going to be charged. There's 5 categories that you can go under. And what this does, it needs to be updated regularly, and the updates come from different sources. For example, your property records come from the central appraisal districts. Those get updated yearly. We also then take pictures. We have an organization, a government entity around the northern part of Texas, which updates by taking pictures with drones of all individual residential facilities, commercial facilities. And so we updated the records, the actual visual records, every 2 years. And these updates were supposedly occurring, but the city never really proved that they were occurring. Basically, they got an email from the consulting firm that said, we've updated the records, but we never got any real verification. So for example, if there were supposed to be 100 records that were updated, we never got a verification that we actually received the 100 records, that those 100 records actually got updated, and that there were no issues or exceptions when they updated those records. We took a sample of several residents just to prove that they were properly classified, that they were being billed correctly. We found some exceptions, and the department continued to tell us, well, your exceptions aren't really valid because it's a matter of a timing. You know, we've updated our records, and when you took it, it really wasn't updated at the time. So it's a timing difference, and everything's fine. And we kept saying to them, well, if it's a timing difference, please show us how and where the timing difference is. And they were never really able to do that. There's another group in the city of Dallas that helps when we're ready to issue an audit report. This is a financial controls group which will help the department determine how to implement our recommendations. And so we got them involved with them, explaining to them that nobody had been able to show us what this timing difference is. They looked into it, and they ended up finding that there were bigger issues than what we had found. And ultimately, what this did is they all agreed that there were some problems with the records, that the updates weren't occurring correctly, and so they did make the recommendations. They did accept our recommendations, but they also did some other things based on the findings of the financial controls group. So that has now made that system much more reliable, and you as a resident, if you got billed, you should be more comfortable that the bill is a proper billing to you. The second one that I would say that we've developed was the recent audit we issued regarding housing inventory. It's called the Audit of Housing Inventory, whereby City Council asked us, because they get a lot of different briefings on housing at the City of Dallas. Those briefings, it seems like none of the numbers always seem to mesh. They're never the same. So if one group is saying we need so many single-family residential units, or we need so many multifamily, the numbers on those were completely different than another group that was providing another type of presentation. So a couple of the council members asked us to do an audit whereby we would give them the actual number of single-family residential homes in the city of Dallas, the actual number of multifamily homes in the city of Dallas, and then give a 3-year average of how that has changed over 3 years. Also, they wanted to get some understanding of the affordability, because as you're experiencing here in Gainesville, there's a lot of concern about being able to provide housing for low-income type people. What tends to happen is a lot of the developers come in, they buy up the low-income properties, and then they build new housing, which is much more expensive. So they wanted to get an idea of what the affordability was. The city of Dallas, we couldn't find any department that actually had the data that we needed, so we ultimately had to go out to the various appraisal districts. The city of Dallas really is located in 4 different counties, so we had to get with 4 different counties to get the information we needed from a property standpoint to identify the total number of residential homes in the city of Dallas. We also then had to define what is a single-family residential home and what is a multifamily residential home, because nobody in the city of Dallas had a standard definition for that. So we ultimately got those definitions, we got the data, we verified the data from the appraisal districts, and we produced the reports that they asked. We also then, using the federal government has some guidelines on how you can calculate affordability, so we used their guidelines and came up with a calculation for the city of Dallas of affordability. With that all said, we ultimately ended up with 3 recommendations along with the information that they requested, one of which was there needed to be a central authority, one authoritative figure in the city of Dallas that was responsible for making sure that the city had that kind of data on housing. and that when all the different organizations were providing data, that was coming from the same source. Second of all, to get a standard definition of what a single-family residence is and what a multifamily residence is. And thirdly, on a periodic basis, calculate the housing affordability that we had calculated. And so from that standpoint, they did accept those recommendations. They're implementing them now. So ultimately, keeping our fingers crossed, the city council should get proper numbers and the same numbers when they get multiple different presentations.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Willetts. Commissioner Book.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning again. Describe an audit experience in which you were involved that led to the verification or discovery of fraud, waste, or abuse within an organization. What was your recommendation and what was the final outcome?
Well, I'll go back to the two that I previously talked about. The first one was the environmental compliance audit, where we did scrap tires and oil spills, where we thought that one of the inspectors was pretty much not really going out and inspecting different locations. He was just using the same checklist, copying it over, changing names and times. And the fact that we took that evidence to the city attorneys, and they came to the conclusion at that point that we didn't have enough to really kind of do anything to reprimand the individual, but they did make changes as to the methodology. They changed the way the supervisors looked at all the different reports just to make sure that people were just not copying the same report, changing names previously. Second of all would be the one with Visit Dallas, whereby we had found some issues with the expense reports of the CEO of Visit Dallas, of which we had to identify, and ultimately that was what cost him his job, and he was let go because of the use of funds that should not be for personal purposes.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Describe your philosophy in managing employees and give an example of when you set expectations and monitored the performance of subordinates. What guidance and direction did you find most effective?
My philosophy is that I am a customer service oriented individual. We are providing the service. I am personally providing the service. I am not the person that you should report to. My staff, I will generally, if they send me an email, whether it's in regards to requesting vacation time, training time, or they need a question on one of the audits and they need some guidance, I will generally try to respond to them within 15 minutes to a half an hour, as long as I'm not in some type of meeting or I'm out of the office. I do that with any individual, whether it's my staff or even it's, for example, if there's a director, assistant city manager, if they ask something or somebody else is asking a manager, I'm going to try to respond quickly because we have to be service. We are not the end piece. We are just kind of the starting, and I don't want to hold people up. From the standpoint of staff, I generally will ask my staff, I always try to keep improving them. And so I always try to make everything, if you want to call it, a teaching moment. And from that standpoint, if a staff member asks me a question, I will generally ask them to give me their suggestion first, so that they have analyzed it first, and then I will either, first of all, say, yes, I agree with you, which will then give them some confidence that they know what they're doing, the analysis was correct, or I may suggest a different way of doing something, in which case then they can see where maybe their analysis wasn't correct, and that allows them to correct it in the future. Second of all, whenever I give an instruction, I will generally give a reason behind that instruction. So I'm not one of these individuals that basically says, go ahead and do it this way. I want you to do it my way. This is the way to do it. I'm always going to say, I think that you ought to do it this way because, and then I will give you 1 or 2 or 3 reasons why that would be the appropriate approach as opposed to what maybe they were suggesting previously. Second of all, I don't believe, I give immediate feedback, let's put it that way. If I see an issue coming up, then I'm not going to let it just kind of drag and wait, for example, to the end of the year when we do annual reviews. I'm going to address it immediately. But when I say that, I also, first of all, look for trends. So, for example, if you're a new individual, new staff person, or you're doing something that you've never done before, you're expected not to necessarily do it correctly the first time. So at that point, it's more of a teaching moment. This is the way you should have done it. And then the next time you do that same instance, if I see the same errors that you made previously, you still, depending if it's not something you do regularly, I may kind of let it go, but I may make a comment. It's when I start seeing the same mistakes made 3, 4, 5 times that I know I'm starting to see a trend that a person may not be getting something, at which point in time I will sit with them and we will talk about what needs to be done to correct that type of issue. Lastly, one of the things that I implemented when I went to the city of Dallas is that anytime an individual works on a project 40 hours or longer, we will give them an evaluation, a formal evaluation of their performance on that particular project. And that evaluation will cover issues, for example, field work documentation, work paper documentation, their communication skills, the way they develop the relationship with the auditee, their skills in regards to different types of technology, for example, using Word, using Excel, maybe using IDEA. And so that way they have an understanding, and they're not waiting again till the end of the year when they get an annual performance. They'll be able to understand where they have some issues, where they may need to improve their skills, or where they're very good at their skills.
Very good. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. Can you discuss your approach to creating a risk-based audit plan based on the results of an enterprise risk assessment? What factors do you consider when determining which areas to review during a specific period?
I am not actively involved with doing the risk assessment at the City of Dallas. The City of Dallas risk assessment was done years ago, and the manager that's pretty much responsible for it has been there a lot longer than I have been there.
Okay.
What we do, though, is every year we update that risk assessment because, number one, the city itself, the city manager has reorganized the departments numerous times. So we need to take a look at the way things have been reorganized and how that may affect our previous risk assessments. Also, various directors have come and gone, and as well as you probably know, right now the city of Dallas has experienced a lot of labor shortage. We're not completely hired up, so changes like that have to be considered when we look at our risk assessment. Second of all, the individual manager that is responsible for this will put out an email at the beginning of the review and basically ask all the people in the audit department if they have any suggestions of audits that we should be doing in the next year. Our risk assessment is used to develop each year's audit plan. So one of the things, when you're doing an audit, you may start seeing some issues that aren't directly related to the audit you're doing, but they're issues that raise red flags that say maybe we need to come back next year and take a look at this issue because we don't have the time right now and the manpower to do it, but we should put it on our audit plan. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for us to give them 1 or 2 suggestions each year what we may want to do from that standpoint. And that's how we update our risk assessment. That's how we develop our audit plan every year. Ultimately, the city auditor makes the final call as to which items or actually which projects are going to get on the plan. Now, I have done risk assessments, though, in the past. I used to work for a company that was called the Outsourcing Partnership. It used to do internal audit work for companies that didn't want to have their own internal audit departments. I was responsible for 2 public companies that had revenues of approximately $500 million. They didn't want to have their own internal audit departments, so I went in and I wrote their audit charter, first of all. Then I did a risk assessment by identifying all the different operational areas and functional areas of those different organizations. Determine the risk of each one, came up with a rating scale of what was high risk, medium risk, low risk, and then presented them an audit plan that said, these are certain areas that we need to audit every year because they're high risk and we always just need to look at them. These are areas that we ought to maybe audit every 2 years, and then these are areas that are kind of low risk and we can do maybe every 3 years. So I have experience with that. Also, when I worked at InterFirst, which was a banking company, banks are very meticulous in doing risk assessment, and I was actively involved in doing our risk assessment as a manager in the internal audit department there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Galter, how do you ensure that financial controls and accounting systems are efficient and effective?
We don't do a lot of financial audits at the City of Dallas. Now, I do have a lot of financial audit background from the standpoint that I've done financial audits as a CPA with public accounting firms, and also some of the internal audit work that I did at the Outsourcing Partnership was primarily financial. What we do, though, when we're looking at a performance audit, we do look at the financial aspects when it's appropriate. For example, one of the audits I'm currently doing is a home buying assistance program, whereby we're looking at two programs, one of which is to assist city residents in actually purchasing a home, and the second one is to assist city residents in their ability to make repairs to their home. These two programs are funded somewhat with the City of Dallas money, some with federal money. So what we do is we selected a sample of the homes to make sure that they were qualified individuals, that they were following the city's procedures in terms of applications, acceptance, and going through the whole process. But at the end, we then do actually look at the funding aspect of that. And when I talk of funding, for example, with the repairs, we first make sure that the vendors' invoices are properly approved and that they are getting money. They may be getting it kind of as a pay-as-you-go. After they get a certain amount of work done, they get a certain amount of money. We make sure that they're getting the money that's deserved them at that time, but we then take that into the accounting system to make sure it is properly posted, because we have to be very concerned with three things. Number one, if we're using federal money, we want to make sure we're using the appropriate federal bucket of money. Second of all, each year, these programs have their own funding, so we want to make sure that the money gets into the proper year's bucket in terms of the city's funding amount, and then from that standpoint, that it's going to the proper individual account or address that was there. So we will take it when we have to, and that's one example where we do that. We also, for example, I did a P-card audit, which is a purchasing card, and we looked at the financial aspects of that, but generally, we are not doing a lot of financial accounting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan Walker. Mr. Galter, can you envision, how do you envision serving the audit committee, the city commission, and the citizens to provide a transparent and fully accountable government? And can you share your experiences in preparing and delivering quarterly updates and annual reports that communicate the successes and activities of a city auditor's office?
Okay. I'll start with the first one, and that would be, if I were to get this position, I would spend as long as it would take just to first understand and develop relationships both with the commissioners, with the city manager, with the other chartered offices, and with directors, just to understand, and residents where need be, to understand what their interests are, what they think the audit office should be doing, and trying to make sure that I fulfill those expectations. In terms of actually providing reports, I would, again, need to understand the reporting structure here, but I have not been actively involved at the City of Dallas in terms of actually preparing we meet monthly with what's called the Government Performance and Financial Management Subcommittee of the City Council. When we issue reports during that month, that monthly report would explain or talk about those. We don't always issue reports each month, but still, the city auditor is responsible for doing those presentations. However, when an audit has been issued that I'm responsible for, then generally the city auditor will have me sit with him so that if there's any questions, we really answer the questions of city council on those particular audits because we're the most knowledgeable. So I have sat and given presentations or answered questions from city council when they have questions about an audit that I was responsible for.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Willens.
Thank you. Mr. Galter, can you discuss a time when you identified and highlighted significant risks to an organization? How did you aid management in addressing these risks through internal controls?
Well, I'll go back to the business partner audits that we did. These were two audits I did my first 2 years, whereby we were looking at nonprofit organizations that were responsible for managing facilities or providing services through a program with the city. As I previously mentioned, we had identified certain organizations from a financial viability standpoint that we thought that they needed to keep a little bit better eye on. But second of all, what we generally find, and this is fairly common, is that the city's departments that were responsible for monitoring the contracts were not properly monitoring the contracts. So we made several recommendations on how they should better implement and how they should be monitoring those contracts, and making sure that the terms of the contract, the city was getting the services that the terms were requiring them to get. And from that, we always do a follow-up on those type of recommendations. So we followed up about a year and a half after to make sure that those recommendations had been implemented and that they were satisfactorily being operating and performing it the way that they said they were going to implement the recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Willens. Commissioner Book.
Thank you.
How will you establish your presence within the city and develop relationships and protocols necessary to be successful?
Well, that'd be just a matter of setting up meetings with all the different commissioners, setting up meetings with the other chartered offices, and setting up meetings with the city manager and some of the directors, just to develop a relationship, and also maybe get a sense of when we could periodically meet. You know, for example, I think it would be very important to meet with the city manager a minimum of like once a month, just to make sure I'm aware of changes or issues that they may be aware of. And that's the key, is really to get out and to talk to people and get their feedback and develop a relationship where, first of all, they trust myself and they're willing to offer up where they see potential issues, because we can't be completely eyes and ears, and we don't know, since we're not in departments or we're not in the operations on a day-to-day basis, and that's the way I would do it.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you. If you become our city auditor, what would you hope to accomplish within the first 6 months?
Well, within the first 6 months, first of all, let me say, from everything I've heard and understand, the city auditor's office is very well run right now, and there's really not any type of issue. So I wouldn't believe I would have to come in and make major changes. So from that standpoint, it's just a matter, it would be a learning process. As I've previously mentioned, it'd be a matter of meeting with the various commissioners, the various chartered offices, just to understand what their thoughts are, what they think, meet with the staff of the audit department, get their feedback, and from there, if I see things that I may be able to tweak a little bit and improve upon, otherwise, it would just be a matter of, I would be the one learning. I would be the one that would, and then I would just take over the administrative responsibilities and pretty much let everything else run, because apparently it's running well now.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. There are times when we must deal with difficult people or conflicts. Tell us how you've dealt with an adversarial citizen, colleague, employee, or elected official, and how you managed the conflict.
Okay.
Explain the steps you went through to resolve the issue or issues. Thank you.
I'll go back to the audit that we did of boards and commissions, which was an audit. The city of Dallas has 52 different boards and commissions, and so those boards and commissions they have involvement with the mayor's office, they have involvement with the city council's office, they have involvement with the city manager's office, they also have involvement with the city secretary's office. So when we did this audit, we actually had to get involved with each of those departments and the heads of those. The city secretary had just recently got done with an audit from our office, which was not a pleasant experience, and they were very concerned because they had believed that we had made some recommendations that the city secretary was supposed to implement, but they didn't have the authority to actually implement those recommendations. They were very hesitant when we came in to start doing this, and one of their biggest concerns is, I don't want you to be giving me recommendations that I can't implement. And so from that standpoint, we already knew we had an individual that was going to be somewhat, we had to kind of hold hands. We needed to make sure that they felt good about what we were doing and that we were factually correct with anything that we were dealing with in terms of the city secretary's office. To alleviate that, one of the things we did is we do what we call a weekly status report. And on that weekly status report, we explain what we are doing, what audit work we had done that previous week, what we may plan to be doing the next week. And then the next section of the audit report, of this status report, is that what are the documents that we're looking for that we've requested have yet to be received, and we give them a date as when we requested that. The third part of that is what we call, we don't call findings as findings, we call them observations now. So the third part would be, what are the potential observations we came with, which may ultimately end up as report points, so that we can make sure that the facts are correct. And then the last part of the status report is the actual observations we know we're going to put in the report. When we issued this every week, generally if we had something as a potential observation, the city secretary would call us and say, what's this going on? What is this observation? Whenever they felt like it was not something that we were doing correctly. So we would generally meet with this individual. Probably, we always sent these out on a Friday, so we always would meet with them generally maybe later that day or the Monday or Tuesday the following week, just to explain what the potential observation was, and if we had our facts wrong, for them to provide us the information. We thought everything was going along smoothly. We came, after the audit was completed, we always do a preliminary issues meeting, which is basically the same thing. These are the potential observations we see maybe going in the report. This gives the departments one last chance to prove factually we are not correct and give us documentation to prove that our facts are not correct. After that meeting, we then issue a discussion draft of the actual report, which we again give to in this case, the city secretary along with the directors, so that they can see what we're actually going to say in writing. Because a lot of times they may think they know something, but when they see it in writing, things kind of change, and all of a sudden it's, oh, no, you got your facts wrong. So this is, again, like the ultimate last chance for you to tell us that our facts are incorrect, or sometimes the way we've said something, although factually is correct, it might not put them in the best of light. So we're willing to hear their suggestions on how we may better say it, which will not change the facts, but maybe put them in a little bit better light than what they currently are. We went through this whole process. We then issued our final management response draft, which is the draft that they are to give us their response to our report. When we got back the response from the city secretary, it was very scathing. It was a situation where they said the auditors were not very cooperative. Had they been more willing to get us all involved at the same time, we've gotten a better result. All of this was due to some of the recommendations we were making. But the point being is that even though we had tried to kind of keep her satisfied, we were not ultimately, some way, shape, or form, she just was never going to be satisfied. We had to put that management response in our report. Now, we do have an ability, if we want to respond to their response in our report. But generally, we realized that this was pretty much a no-win situation, that we were never going to really make her happy. So we just put that in, and we let it be issued that way. When City Council saw the recommendations and listened to us, they ultimately sided with us, and they wanted them to do the recommendations, and this individual kind of changed her tune. Ultimately, the other thing is I worked with the city secretary on another audit later, and I had no real issues with her at that point in time. So this was, like, again, I think a situation, number one, where she had just come off as something that was bad, and she still kind of had that bad taste in her mouth. And second of all, once she saw what we were really recommending and what City Council wanted, she realized that she really wasn't in a position to be saying what she was saying.
Thank you, Commissioner Sesnak. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you. Mr. Galter, explain your experience, knowledge, and opinions about Red Book and Yellow Book procedures.
I am very knowledgeable about Yellow Book. Red Book, I don't do a lot of work because I have never worked in an organization that really follows the Red Book. I've done financial audits, I've done internal audit as a private, but we don't really follow Red Book that way either. Yellow Book, the city of Dallas, first of all, the prior city auditor when I first came in, we get what's called a peer review. Every 3 years, we have an organization that comes in and takes a look at the way we do our audits to make sure that we are in compliance with the Yellow Book. The prior city auditor directive was, I don't want to have any bad findings in any of these peer reviews. I want no findings whatsoever, no exceptions. So we were very diligent in the way we set up our audit work to be in compliance with the Yellow Book. And the way, if you were to look at the way we structured we use an electronic work paper system. So in that electronic work paper system, there's a section that tells you how to do your planning of an audit. It tells you how to do your field work. It tells you how to do your reporting. Each step in each of those sections has an actual reference to the Yellow Book that says this is what you need to do. For example, in planning, one of the things they want you to do is learn about the nature of the operations. So there are actual quotes of the section of the Yellow Book in our procedures. This is why you're doing it, because the Yellow Book requires you to quote that. So I can go through these, and just about everything I know, I can go back to the Yellow Book and know and look at. So from that standpoint, we've all been very well drilled into using the Yellow Book.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan Walker. And I'll close this out. Do you have, Mr. Galter, any questions for us? And would you like to make a closing statement?
As far as questions, I think from the discussions we had previously and the things I've learned about the city, I don't have any further questions that way. In terms of a closing statement, the only thing I would say is I think you'll find that I'm unique from the other candidates from the standpoint that My background has been in a lot of what I will call first time through work, which means it's never been done before, which means I have to do individual thought and analysis. I just can't go back to, for example, to last year's work papers, read what they did last year and then just do it this year. I actually have to go into a department and learn what they do and then determine what I want to do in terms of an audit work. Second of all, I've done a lot of operational work where I was working in startup organizations where there was nothing there. I was the person that first came in, and for example, I would come in as maybe a vice president of finance or CFO, but I actually processed payroll, or I actually did process the accounts payable, or we did set off the billings. I was the one that maybe determined when we needed to start HR department and who we should hire and what we needed to look for that way. You know, let me put it this way, prior to maybe hiring the HR, I was the HR, so I made sure if we needed to reprimand an employee that we did it correctly so that there would be no suits. So from that standpoint, again, I'm a little bit more cognizant of what it means when you're an operational person. You know, I sometimes joke with people that auditors are kind of a pain because you walk in the day, when you're an operations person, you walk in at the beginning of the day, you have a list of, you want to get this, this, and this done, and all of a sudden the auditor comes in and says, oh, by the way, I need all these documents. Well, the most important thing is the operational aspect. If you're doing 311 calls, you need to answer those calls before you deal with the auditor. I kind of understand that perspective, so I use that when I do my audit work also. I sometimes put myself in the shoes of that director or that manager, saying if I was managing that department, how would I do it? And having my past operational experience, as opposed to purely an auditor that's been making recommendations, I'm a little bit more sensitive to that. And so when they make comments to me as well, your recommendation doesn't make sense, because I think I can understand that a little bit better because I've had an operational side of work also.
Very good. All right, thank you. And if you don't have any other questions for us, does anyone have any last-minute additions? Okay. Thank you very much for
Thank you for your time.
being with us. Ms. Gretz, what time is our next candidate scheduled for?
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. The next interview is scheduled for 11:15, although he's on site, and we sent a note to him to be prepared to present at 11.
Okay.
If you'd like, you could take a 15-minute recess, and we'll rotate everybody around.
Okay. Yep.
So we do, just as a point of information, as candidates are here interviewing, we're keeping them busy with tours of the city and some other interactions with staff. So it's a bit of a juggling act, so we appreciate your patience with us.
But you feel comfortable that he could be ready at 11?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We will be in recess until 11 o'clock. We are back in session. Mr. Muir, welcome. Ms. Gress, did you need to say anything, or are we good? Okay, all right. Mr. Muir, come on up. Welcome back. The way we proceed with this is we have a list of questions that we've asked of each candidate, and we go through each commissioner asks a question, and then we rotate back around at the end of that list. Do you have any questions about process before we get started?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. And we'll have an hour for this. You have as much time as you need, but don't feel that you need to use all the time that you have. It's entirely up to you.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Duncan Walker, you will start us off this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Mire, correct?
Mire.
Mire.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Please provide us with a brief professional introduction and tell us what attracts you to the city auditor position with the city of Gainesville.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you this morning. Presently, I'm working for the city of Tampa. I'm a senior auditor with the city of Tampa, and I've been with them for the past 10 years. I've worked for various government organizations for the past maybe 15 years. Before I came to Tampa, I worked for the state of Kansas in the Medicaid program. I was an auditor there for 5 years. Before I joined that organization in the Medicaid Inspector General's office, I worked for the Kansas Department of Revenue. as a government management systems analyst. Before that, I also had worked for the Wichita School District for about 1.5 years. So I've had a number of years working for various government organizations. And during that time, working for these government organizations, I've been trying my level best to get myself better educationally. I have taken some studies. I graduated from the University of Missouri with a master's in health informatics. When I came down to the city of Tampa, I thought I could take the opportunity to learn how government is actually run, and I enrolled in a program in public affairs. I'm currently a student there. I'm in candidacy. It's a PhD program. I'm currently working on my dissertation in public affairs. That's my professional and educational background. My interest for coming to the city of Gainesville, I will not say that Gainesville was a great appeal compared to Tampa. Gainesville is a very nice city, but I think I'm at a stage in my career where I can take the next step in working for the government. So when I got my training in public affairs and lumped it together with the experience that I have in government, and this opportunity came along, I thought I would take it, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan Walker. Can you please describe for us your experience in overseeing and conducting financial, compliance, and performance government audit functions, and please provide examples of significant audits that you've led?
For the city of Tampa, and I will also say when I worked for Medicaid in Kansas, I do now and I've done before a number of compliance audits. I've always said to people that I talk to regarding compliance audits that for me they are some of the easier audits that we can do because we have to just follow the law. Compliance audits, to me, to some extent, is an audit where you have to check every box. You look at a law, you look at an ordinance, is it being followed? You look at the law, you look at the policy, you look at the regulation, is it being followed? And for the city of Tampa, we do have a number of grants that are provided by the state as well as the federal government. And the reason for me that they appear to be a little easier is that most of the time we find that federal auditors also come to do some audits of those grants. And what we do, therefore, when we do an audit that has been looked at by the federal government is to say, what have they looked at and what have they not looked at? And so we concentrate on that. We have done a number of audits in HAPA, which is a program for people, a housing program for people with HIV. There are considerations there of eligibility of people that are in that program. There are also compliance requirements with respect to revenue, to money that is involved in the program. With respect to, excuse me. With respect to Medicaid, I used to do audits with not only the program managers of the Medicaid program at the state level. I also did audits of people that provided services, entities that provided services to Medicaid recipients. Those also were compliance audits because they had to follow a whole slew of requirements from the federal government as well as from the state government, because Medicaid is a combination of state and federal. So again, it was a matter of just looking at maybe qualifications of beneficiaries, maybe do the claims that have been said by the providers meet all the conditions that they must in order for them to be paid and so on. So I think compliance audits in that regard are very important. They are very, very important, but they are relatively easy compared to other audits that we might do.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Willis.
All right, Mr. Mere, what experience do you have with compliance reviews to ensure operating practices are consistent with applicable ordinances and statutes? In your experience, What is the key to ensuring an organization is compliant with all laws, regulations, and standards applicable to your area of responsibility?
Perhaps I believe part of that question is what I answered in my last response. However, regarding how an organization makes sure that it complies with requirements, what I think is the best thing to do is to make sure that an organization, let's take a department of a city, has documented a policy that captures all the requirements within the law that they are operating under. There could be regulations, it could be the law, it could be an ordinance. A department should have policy that itself writes, that mirrors what is required in that law. It is not the best practice for a department to assume that because we have this law written in this act or whatever, that an employee will be able to read through it and understand exactly what they have to do. So it is a best practice for those that know, and that might be lawyers, to read that law, simplify the law, and make it a policy so that when employees read, they know how to apply it in the business that they do on a daily basis. So I think, therefore, having a documented policy, one that is disseminated to all the people that use it, regarding the law that guides them, is what has to be done.
Thank you, Commissioner Willett. Commissioner Book.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning again.
Good morning.
Tell us about a time when you improved the reliability or data integrity of a financial or information system.
For the city of Tampa, and I have some experience as well with Medicaid, we use a number of systems that deal with dissemination, or dissemination of information, giving out money to people, taking money from entities. One example, and I think this is a very popular example, many cities use that, is called Oracle. Oracle is a system that allows people to enact all your internal controls that govern how payments are made, how payments are received. That can also capture times that if there are any times involved. Now, to make sure that there is a high level of compliance with respect to how money is used, it is a good practice. In fact, it is best practice for the city, and this is mostly done by the Information Technology Department, to code into the system all the internal controls that must govern how operations are to be carried out. For example, if, say, you have a program, let's take the housing program that I referred to earlier on housing for people with HIV. You have regulations that are coming from the federal government. This person must be this, maybe employment status, maybe housing status and all that. You want to code that into the system. It has to be in the system that runs that program. So it's reading a policy, it's reading a law, making sure that it is documented in a hard copy policy, and taking that and hard coding it into the system. Now, there is some difficulty that might arise from that. In that, sometimes you will have all these codes built into the system that are taken from the law that will make it difficult for people to actually operate on a daily basis. They will be stopped every now and again. Somebody's complaining because something did not happen because it has been stopped by the system. You want, therefore, to combat that by allowing some overrides. If something is stopped in the system, you want to have somebody that can come and allow a bypass of some sort, so that that activity can proceed. That brings its own challenge, in that now you are relying on an individual to effect that override. You do not know that every override that individual is going to allow is permissible. So you want to mitigate that risk by making sure that you have as few overrides, as few people as possible that can do that override. You don't want to have everybody that has access to the system having the capability to override that system. So you might choose a few supervisors that are capable to effect that override, but also to guard against. Unfortunately, sometimes you might get a dishonest person, with the authority to override. To guard against them unlawfully overriding something, you want to have a hierarchy of people that have an idea of what is going on with those overrides. So you might have a chief accountant who will see that, okay, the supervisor made this override, it goes to them, they make sure that it is correct. You might have a financial director who also should have an idea of what is going on and their authority to say it is okay. That way, you mitigate. It might not be 100% mitigation, but it is a lot better.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you. Mr. Mir, can you describe an audit experience in which you were involved that led to the verification or discovery of fraud, waste, or abuse within an organization? What was your recommendation and what was the final outcome?
I will take an example of the Medicaid program that I worked in before. And like I said before, we would analyze the claims that are made, see that they are being done right, not all of them. The difficulty with the Medicaid program, Medicare as well, and many other programs, is that claims can be very voluminous. A lot of claims will be coming in. So it is sometimes very difficult to make sure that every claim that has been paid for was a legitimate claim, because there are millions, literally millions that come on a yearly basis. So in this particular instance, we were lucky in that we just picked a sample, and in our sample we found some claims that were questionable. So we look at this claim, we find, okay, this should not have been paid, but it was. You look at another one, you find the same thing, and you find that there is a pattern going on. It just happened that they kept pointing to a certain a provider. It was a team of two doctors that had practices in the state of Kansas as well as Missouri. They were actually brothers. So when we found that there seemed to be a pattern, we decided that we were going to go into the system, into the Medicaid Management Information Systems, and get all claims that came from these particular service providers. And we found that this was over many years, by the way, in the early 2000s. There were many claims that had been paid that were not supposed to have been paid, to the tune of about $4.1 million. Of course, our recommendation was for more work to be done. We had our protocols with respect to discovering fraud. The Medicaid Inspector General's office did not have arresting powers. We did not have the police force, for example, people trained in proper police work who could go to those facilities and do what is supposed to be done. So the protocol we had was, if we go to a position like that, we take what we have found to what we call the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit. This was a unit within the State Attorney General's office. They had officers there, they had lawyers, they had people who could go and do the extra work that needed to be done, which is what we did. So they ended up, of course, finding that there were more claims than what we have found, and more fraud as well on the other side of the border. In Missouri, we were in Kansas. In Missouri, there were all kinds of fraud with the same people that had taken place. And on the Missouri side, the federal government had already been involved. The FBI, Inspector General's offices had been involved, and one of the providers, unfortunately, had passed away, taken his own life because of that. And on the other side, the other brother, the half of the fraud, was arrested. I mean, this is where your recommendation really is a matter of fact. You just have to do it. People already know what has to be done. You shut that operation down. You cannot process any claims that might be coming from them anymore. Unfortunately, although it was a moment of triumph for us because we had made this discovery, we did not recover any money for the state because that facility was not in, those facilities were not in a position to pay back. But we were very glad, very pleased about what we had done.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. Describe your philosophy in managing employees and give an example of when you set expectations and monitored the performance of subordinates. What guidance and direction do you find most effective?
First and foremost, I think as auditors, our bottom line, our baseline is that auditors should understand the regulations that they must follow. As auditors, we are guided by, as government auditors, let me say, we are guided by what we call in our trade as the Yellow Book. The Yellow Book is a book of standards that is issued by the Government Accountability Office of the federal government. It's called the Generally Accepted Government Auditing Standards Book. And it's actually yellow. That is why we call it the Yellow Book. So when I talk to junior auditors about expectations in their job, first and foremost, it is that they have to have an understanding of what is required of them in the Yellow Book. It's not possible that you will know every page and every requirement in there, but that has to be your companion. If you are not sure about what you have to do in a certain situation, you have to refer to the Yellow Book. That's the baseline. Regarding to the day-to-day work, it is my philosophy that it doesn't matter the position that you have in an organization. You might be the highest person in an organization. You have to have respect for the people that work for you. You have to have respect for people that you work with. That means for a subordinate, for example, if you find that there is an area where they need to improve in their job, you do not have to go to them in public and you start telling them where they are not up to par in terms of expectations and performance. You take them aside, you document if you have to, and tell them where they are coming short. Most of the time, people know where they are coming short. But if you tell them in private that you have noticed that they are coming short in this particular area, you give your insight as to how they can improve in that particular area. Privately, I think they are receptive a little better than if you do it publicly and everybody is listening. And now they have their confidence down. They don't have confidence in front of others. They think, oh, now they think I'm incompetent and all that. I also believe that similarly, when you want to get the best out of a subordinate, you have to give praise where praise is due. And when you give somebody praise in their performance, you can do that publicly. That can be public. And in fact, it must, because it makes them feel good in front of their peers. They feel now they got respect from their peers. So you can use an environment of a staff meeting, for example, to talk about how well they are doing in this particular area, how well they are doing in this particular area. You can go to this guy if you want, or to this lady, or to this worker, your co-worker, to get help in this particular area. That, in my view, gives employees confidence when they are among other people. When you know that you are respected by others, you are able to speak in their presence. If you think that these people think I'm incompetent, you don't want to talk. And when you talk, you hide. Performance dips if you do that. So my philosophy is openness with your subordinates. Be timely. with your advice, especially where performance is coming short. You have to be timely. Be frank. People have emotions, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to tell them what might hurt. But as long as you do it with respect, privately if it's a critique, and publicly if it's praise, I think it will get your subordinates to perform much better.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chestnut, Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, can you discuss your approach to creating a risk-based audit plan based on the results of an enterprise risk assessment? What factors do you consider when determining which areas to review during a specific period?
We believe, and I think this is done in many places, maybe all places in government auditing, that all auditing has to be risk-based because there is so much to audit. If you are going to audit every little activity, maybe you will waste your time auditing things that really don't have any risks involved. So risk-based auditing is very important. What we do, and I will talk about my experience with the City of Tampa, is that we, on a yearly basis, do a risk assessment to identify areas that have higher risks than others. We try to make that as objective as it can be. So we have a spreadsheet in which we have a formula that is written in it, and we feed certain factors that are used in that formula that will help us calculate the risk associated with a function or an activity or a department as a whole, etc. So in some of the factors that go into that formula are something as straightforward as the budget of, say, a division or an office or a function. How much money do they use per year? You put that in the formula. What is the complexity of that function? Some activities are less complex than others. That's a fact of life. So complexity will lead to, for example, how many professionals, people with, say, engineering degrees, should you have in the positions you have in that particular function. That comes to complexity. You plug that into the formula. Some of that can be, another factor is, when was the last time that you audited this particular area? If you audited the area last year, for example, there is a chance, there is a very low chance that there are certain things that might have cropped up after you were done because the time is short. But if it was audited more than 5 years ago, for example, it's likely that there are things in there that might have come after you were done with it that you want to look into. So that becomes also a factor in that formula. When was the last time that an audit was done? Another factor is, how much interest does the public, members of the public, have in this particular function? There are certain activities within the city that people really don't care about, or shall we say maybe don't give much of their attention to. So that means usually those are the things that don't have much risk. Those are the things that don't affect them more, etc. If you talk about, for example, the police department, people want to know what's going on there. If you talk about fire rescue, people want to know what is going on there. Maybe if you talk about a club in a library for some handicrafts, there will be people that are concerned with that because it's a hobby, but doesn't have as much attention throughout the community as others. So it's a factor as well. There are many others, but you plug them in, and a number will come from that formula in the spreadsheet. Those numbers you get will help you rank the risk. So now with that ranking, you take the top 20, top 30 activities. They constitute what is going to be your audit plan for the coming year. That's how objective we like it to be. Still, we take that to the mayor in Tampa. In Tampa, we have a strong mayor form of government. So we take our audit plan for the year to the mayor and to the chief of staff. They take a look. They might have comments. They might have their input. It doesn't. There is no instance, with my experience, where the mayor will say, "Throw this out. This is what you're going to do." They have never done that. It has never happened. And our independence, by the way, our office also is protected by its own independence. They cannot do that. We do have a council that works with the mayor and that works with us. The council members are also given an opportunity to pick at least 3. I believe now that is a part of an ordinance we have, where they have to pick at least 3 audit topics that they want included and to be done in the coming year. They will put those in, and when we do that, we then go to the nitty-gritty, where we plan which audits are we going to do first. I mean, just the order in which we are going to do the audits over the year. We take that to the directors, to the managers that run those activities, so that they know we will be coming to their areas to do audits in that year. We also ask them to tell us if, this particular time is the best time to come to you, to work on this audit, because they can be busy. Auditor work is not priority number 1 for departments, and it shouldn't be. They are doing certain things that they were hired to do. Those are their priorities. So when you come in, you do not want them to set aside what they should be doing to attend to you. So you want to come to them at a time that they have an opportunity or a good chance of working with you without any other pressures coming from other places. So they might say, for example, a Parks and Rec director might say, "I do not think that May or June is the best time to come because people are coming to swimming pools and my people are busy." So we take that into consideration to plan out our audit plan for the year, and that is how we do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan Walker. How would you ensure that financial controls and accounting systems are efficient and effective?
Again, as I tried to explain earlier, how effective an accounting system can be assured. Maybe nothing is ever 100% assured, but you can have a reasonable assurance that they are effective if you use again the accounting system to be the guardian of all the internal controls you have. So you want, as I said, to have all your internal controls coded in a system, so that you don't at any time have to depend on an individual knowing what has to be done, or running to a policy that is on a hard copy to see, should I accept this client coming into the swimming pool or not, or should I let this kid come in for free or not. It should all be coded in a system. Somebody presents themselves to you, they say who they are, they give you the address where they live. Maybe address, the location where you live, is a factor. Maybe you cannot enjoy this particular program because you live outside the city boundaries. You don't want an individual to make that determination. When I joined the city of Tampa, I asked to be driven around just to see the boundaries of the city. It was very interesting to me how difficult it is to tell whether a certain place, a certain business, for example, is in the city or is outside. You can find a business here that is within city boundaries, and one next to it is in the county, it's not within the city. So if you leave that to an individual to make that determination, look at this address, he's in the city, he too should be in the city, but that's not correct. So you want to code that. Maybe it might be a geographical information system that helps, or that coordinates with a financial system. You want all that to be determined by a system. A human should come in an instance where maybe the system is not working very well. That is how I see it.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Willow.
Right. How do you envision serving the audit committee, city commission, and citizens to provide a transparent and fully accountable government? Share your experience in preparing and delivering quarterly updates and annual reports that communicate the successes and activities of the city auditor's office.
Maybe let me begin with the last part of that question on how do you communicate what you have done in the city auditor's office. I think, and I believe, and I think I'm right in that commissioners, councilmen are really, really busy people. I do not want to be in a situation where every quarter I write a whole a booklet of what we have done in the office so they can read. They need 2 hours to read to see what I have done. I believe in just communicating in point form what we have achieved in the office. This is what we have done, bullet, 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 bullet. These are the recommendations that we came up with this quarter or maybe last year in bullet form. Last year we had these number of recommendations. We went into this department and these are the number of corrective actions that they have done, all summarized in bullet form so that busy people can, while they are in an elevator, just take a look and see what has been done. So that is how I think communication must be done, as concise as it can be, as clear as it can be, but from time to time, of course, there should be some presentations that have to be made to commissioners, to councilmen, to people that might need to get some more explanation, because sometimes a bullet can be meaningless. Maybe somebody wants some explanation. That can be made in a face-to-face presentation by the city auditor's office to the commissioners. The first part of that question, if you may repeat, please.
Oh, yes. How do you envision serving the audit committee, city commission, and citizens to provide a transparent and fully accountable government?
All right. So I think it is very important all the time for the city auditor's office to know or have an idea of the expectations of commissioners. So I believe in that regard, it is important to have to have a meeting where commissioners spell out what they expect the city auditor's office to do, what they expect them to accomplish, what they expect the objectives to be like. So I believe that when commissioners do that with the city auditor's office, the office at that point knows how to plan their own work to achieve objectives that are proper. But I also think that that kind of communication between the city auditor's office and the commissioners is also the communication line to citizens, because you represent citizens. It is okay, I believe, from time to time to hear from the horse's mouth, as they say, what citizens actually think. But my belief is that commissioners carry the wishes of the people. And so I would want to have an open communication channel with the audit committee. They tell me what they expect. I tell them what I will be able to do. I tell them the direction that we are heading. I come to them with problems that we might have, successes, failures, and so on. And I think that is the kind of communication that I would want to have.
Thank you.
Commissioner Buck.
Okay. Can you discuss a time when you identified and highlighted significant risks to an organization? How did you aid management in addressing these risks through internal controls?
I will give an example of an audit that I have done before with wastewater in the city of Tampa. Wastewater has all kinds of equipment, huge pieces of equipment that they use for their daily operations. Some of these pieces of equipment are really, really old. And in Tampa, we have a system where if a division or a department has inventory that exceeds a certain value, that inventory has to be kept by the Division of Inventory Control. It happened that over years, pieces of equipment that came from wastewater into the warehouse were just accumulating, just sitting in the warehouse, piling up, until a point came when they were taking so much space that they had to be moved out and were being stored outside. So when we did this audit, we go there, we are having a tour of the audit just to familiarize ourselves with what the warehouse looks like, what the processes are, etc., meet the people. We are seeing all these pieces of equipment lying outside, and we ask what they are, we ask what they are doing. oh, these are pieces of equipment coming from wastewater operations. And why are they here? Why are they outside? Well, we don't have space anymore for them because they are so much. How much are they? What's the value here? Oh, we don't know. So we obviously made two recommendations. Asked them to value those pieces of equipment outside. What is the value to these things? We asked if they could be disposed of because this, to us, looked like obsolete equipment. There was pushback on that, and the pushback was wastewater does not know if these pieces of equipment have repair parts anymore. So we have to keep them here. If we have to cannibalize them, to make repairs, we will do that. We thought it was a valid point. But, of course, our recommendation was to, okay, take them from where they are, outside there, exposed to the elements, take them inside, find a place where you can store them so they are, maybe they can be used when eventually you want to use them, and put a value to them so that the city knows. That's just one example.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you. How will you establish your presence within the city and develop relationships and protocols necessary to be successful?
I think first and foremost, the best route to go in that regard is to have a good relationship with people that lead the functions we audit. That means having a good, professional, courteous relationship between the city auditor's office and people that work in the various departments, their heads, line management, people that work on the floor. The reason for that is that when you approach a division and you want to audit an activity there, and the only relationship that you have is with the director, well, the director is not the person you'll be working with on a daily basis when you do that audit. You are working with line managers. You are working with people on the ground. So you want also to have a relationship with them because those are the people you'll be interacting with. So I believe that the members of staff in the city auditor's office should not be regarded by other employees of the city as those auditors. There should not be. Unfortunately, there is in many places some kind of line of divide between auditors and other workers because the auditors are regarded as those people that come to tell us what we are doing here or to tell us the bad things that we are doing here. So that person-to-person interaction, that person-to-person respect is, I think, what you need, on the get-go to be successful in what you do. Courtesy does not mean that you spare recommendations that might not be very easy to hear, by the people that you are dealing with. You have to have integrity, and integrity means saying what has to be said. But what has to be said might hurt. It does not have to be said in a hurtful way. You have to be respectful. You have to let people that you are working with know that you are not trying to just identify what they are doing wrong. Let them know that you are there to identify areas of improvement where operations can be improved. You tell me what you are doing. You show me the policies that you use to do your work. I, as an auditor, have some training to look at what your policies say and what you are doing from studying the way you do your work. That way, I can be your extra pair of eyes that can say to you, look, this is not what you say you should do. It says here that you must be doing X, Y, and Z. Looks like you are doing A, B, C. There is a difference there. Somebody appreciates that if you do it in a respectful way, because they do realize that they've been working these programs for years and years and years. They have now certain areas where they are paying attention and others that they regard as not that important. Now, when I come in and I'm a rookie, I look at those things and I ask those questions. By the way, when I go into an area to work with people, I tell them, I'm new here, I don't know what you do, so I'm going to ask you some of the dumbest questions you've ever had. Feel free to answer me. Of course, they laugh, etc., etc. But it is important for them to know that they own the process, that they know it better than you do, and I think they work with you better if you do that.
Very good. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. If you become our city auditor, what would you hope to accomplish within the first 6 months?
I believe there will be a number of things, but it is not, I would not give you an honest answer if I say to you exactly, oh, I would like to accomplish this, and that. To be able to do that, I will need to see exactly what they are doing, how they are doing it. I would need to see what their challenges are. I would need to see where they might consider that they have tried their best and they have failed. And so I concentrate my attention on those things. But in a nutshell, I hope that currently there is a good there is a professional working relationship between the City Auditor's Office and all the other departments. I believe there is. I've seen how people interact. We had lunch yesterday with various people. I've talked this morning with Ms. Anderson, and she seems to think that there is some good working relationships. So I think that is there. There are certain ways that might differ from one audit shop to another to accomplish same objectives in an audit. I don't know yet how they carry out certain things. Every auditor will tell you that, oh, we do preliminary research in an audit, we do field work in an audit, and we do report writing. Those activities can be accomplished in different ways by different people, some more effective than others. I don't know yet, what procedures they use, what processes they have, but I think that I have a number of things that I found to be different with a number of shops that I'm familiar with that I can add to the City Auditor's Office to make maybe to speed up processes of producing audit reports and completing audits.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, there are times when we must all deal with difficult people or conflicts. Tell us how you have dealt with an adversarial citizen, colleague, employee, or elected official, and how you managed that conflict. Explain the steps you went through to resolve the issue.
I think this goes to some of the responses that I've given, and this is my philosophy, my approach to working with others. I believe that the human being is the most important piece of any process that you ever have. And therefore that human being is to be treated with respect. And respect is what I use. I let people, I don't only tell them that I respect them. In fact, I don't tell them that I respect you. I act it out. The way I discuss things with them, the way I ask my questions, the way I might even challenge certain things that are going on in their processes. I do not do that from a point from a holier than thou point, a point of authority where I say, oh, look, I know better, this is not right, because I don't. So when I have, when I see something that I think might not be going according to how it should be by policies or the law or whatever, I make sure that I and the person I'm working with approach that together. I let them see what I'm seeing, because they have a different way of seeing it because they've been working at that thing for years and years. But I explain to them, bit by bit, step by step, the way I see it. And I let them know I'm a rookie in your activity. So explain to me, as if this is my first day on this job, why this is as it is and not according to how I think it's written here. Maybe I'm interpreting what I'm reading incorrectly. They will help me with that. So I use this approach, and I've used it with one particular gentleman that is a very smart man, an accountant who has qualifications in internal auditing, that has been regarded, and who actually, I think, thrives in a reputation of being a difficult guy. So when I joined the city of Tampa, I was told about him. Oh, there is a time will come when you must work with this guy, and they talk about him, and we laugh, and they show me reports, some of the responses that he might have given to people, etc. And sure enough, my turn came, to work with him. Of course, I had the advantage of having been pre-warned about what to expect, and I already am a respectful person, and I approached them from the very start with respect. The first thing, one of the first things that I asked him was what he feels about internal auditors, because I knew he was a certified internal auditor, and he knew it. What do you feel about? Of course, he laughs, or indeed tells me about, his certificates, etc. At some point, he actually brought his certificate and showed it to me, and he will pretend, to be very, very friendly, but he's putting in some phrases in there about how he thinks this audit shop is identifying risks that don't exist in his particular function. To which, of course, I kind of now say, but there was a discussion that was carried out with you regarding risks in this particular function, and you did not bring that up, because we do keep notes. When we go, after we do our annual audit plan, like I tried to explain, we take it to various department heads, division heads, and we show them what we have. We talk about the risks. We ask them about the risks that they might have, or what objections that they might have with respect to the audit plan for the year. And he did not have any objection to that, and the reason was he hadn't actually taken time to read through it and to see what it was. But on proceeding to work with him, I was objective in everything I did with him. I told him that I'm not an accountant. I'm a rookie when it comes to accounting. You are the expert. Make me an accountant in the next 3 months. That is what I said to him. Make me an accountant in the next 3 months. Tell me what you do exactly, to a point where if I got into one of your positions in here, you'll be proud of my performance. We worked very well together. At the end of it, we were happy. Over the years, we've developed a friendship to an extent. This month, I received a good, happy birthday message from him, of all people. And my colleagues were kind of surprised, and they always joke, okay, you'll be the one to go there. And he jokes too. If you want an audit, send Stephen. I'm going to work with him. And I feel good about it. And I think he now has a different view of what we do in the auditor's office.
Very good. So you've alluded to this in an earlier question, but I'll ask you to be a little more specific. Explain your experience, knowledge, and opinions about Red Book and Yellow Book procedures.
I have experience in the Yellow Book. I'm not able to give you right now the differences between the Red Book and Yellow Book. I know there are some shops that use the Red Book. My experience is in the Yellow Book. My experience is in the Green Book, the Green Book that is used by inspectors general that I used to use when I worked for Medicaid. So ever since I joined the city of Tampa, the Yellow Book is all that I have used. I haven't had an experience yet or a chance yet to utilize the Red Book.
Okay, very good. Mr. Wells,
right.
bring us home.
Do you have any questions for us, and would you like to make a closing statement?
I do have both. I'll start with a question, and I might have posed it. I don't know if between commissioners you might have discussed it. I was wondering why the interim city auditor, who I think is very capable, and I've heard very good words said by some of you about the interim city auditor, is not taking this position. Why are we here? Why is she not the city auditor?
So I'm happy to make a fairly generic answer for you, but you certainly would need to ask her specifically. I think she's terrific at the job. She wants to, from my understanding, settle back into a role in the department, but not necessarily have the lead authority in the department on an ongoing basis. She's looking forward to us making a hire.
Okay, thank you. My next question, and I believe I might have posed this question in some of the discussions we had yesterday, regards the timetable you might have with respect to when you think the candidate you choose must start to do their work.
Excellent question. That's something that we would refer to in just a few minutes anyway. The hope is that we will make a decision. It will be agended it should be agended for a decision next Thursday, the 7th. And then I will get, assuming that I'm directed to put a contract together, I will get with Ms. Gretz, and she will help me get in touch with whoever we select. And the hope would be that we could have an announcement to be made for a contract at our special meeting on December 14th, so that we could get started sometime in January.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
I'll just say in closing, I would like to thank you very much. I'm very grateful for this opportunity that you have given me to discuss this position. I'm grateful too to Ms. Yolanda for the opportunity, to come and speak to you about this position. I have learned a few things that I was not aware. I tried to do my research. They teach us when you go for an interview, you do your research. So I tried to do that, but I found that there were still a number of things that I did not understand, and I'm grateful for the discussions we have had. I know that I might not have responded to some of the questions maybe with as much clarity as you might have expected. I'm free, I'm willing to respond to any other questions. If you email or if you call or if you text, I can do that. With that, I would also just like to say, and I've spoken about this, I am a student currently. I'm a PhD candidate at UCF in public affairs. It means I am writing my dissertation. I've collected my data, and now all I'm doing is to write my dissertation. That is, of course, time consuming, but I will not be asking for time from you away from work in order to do that. So I'm just saying this in case it became part of the factors that you look at as you try to see who to pick. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate the time you've had with me.
Thank you very much for being with us today and for making extremely effective and efficient use of the time allotted you. And please don't undersell yourself. I enjoyed your answers, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Ms. Gretz, do you have anything to add?
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. No, I don't believe there's anything to add. As the Mayor indicated, we have an agenda item crafted for the December 7th meeting for you all to make a selection at that time of a city auditor. Should you choose to do so, then as the Mayor indicated, the consultant and HR will work with the Mayor to help negotiate a contract that will hopefully come forward to you all for approval December 14th.
Excellent.
Any other questions for me?
Anybody? I don't see anything. Thank you. I do appreciate the tremendous work that our consulting firm has put in on this. Thank you for being here with us today and for all this effort, as well as our HR office and all the other folks who have been involved in putting this together. There are a lot of plates in the air when we bring candidates in for a national search, and our folks here in the building and next door have kept all those plates spinning, and I appreciate everyone's involvement in moving this set of interviews forward. So we move on to member comment. All right. Anyone have anything to add? Commissioner Willits.
Just because I know we're going to meet again, but I know I'm traveling before then, so I wanted to just have some comments about our applicants, just so that I don't forget. So they get said. I'm thrilled with all of them. They all have great experience in different places. I just wanted to point out a couple particular answers from today that really stuck with me, kind of the best answers. And then, of course, we're going to have more conversation. But I just wanted to, we don't have many opportunities so to talk like this. Mr. Galter had a great question on answer 4 about improving reliability of data on something. It was very specific, and it really got to the how you improve the data reliability, not the generic, oh, well, we go this audit, that audit, but really kind of a process oriented. I really, really appreciated that. And then on Mr. Alger, I think on a question 11 about establishing your presence within the city and developing relationships. Though it sounds cheesy, attending city events to see city staff in our different charter offices to build that relation, it spoke to me as something very simple, but very prescient to understand that that kind of trust is not just built in business meetings and in offices, but it's out seeing the work they do in their respective offices. I really appreciated that. Then Mr. Mere had, for answer 3 about experience with compliance reviews and ensuring an organization is compliant, just the mentioning of that documented policy so that employees understand it. The law is out here, the attorney may understand it, but how we implement that implementation, that procedure, that just really spoke to, and maybe perhaps that is very key to maybe all auditors understand that, but communicating that to city commissioners I felt was great. He also had a great answer on number 7 about creating risk-based audit plans. Again, this may just be that sometimes the commission needs to hear it, that how it's built. These are the factors: complexity, size of budget, exposure of public, time since the last time you did it, longevity of employees in those. Maybe that's key to all auditors, but for me to have that explanation, so when we sit down with that plan, the why, how do you come up with this why? Really appreciate, sometimes they have to educate us. We ask the dumb questions and you be the expert and tell us why. Appreciated that. And then a great answer on number 8 about ensure financial controls and accounting systems. Probably the only person I feel answered that you program in that part, particularly into the system. Not about the priorities so much, priorities are going to come from lots of stakeholders, but financial controls and accounting, how to make them efficient and effective, that has to be programmed into your system. So just particularly great answer. I know Mr. Emery has less experience leading individual employees. Man, some good answers. So anyways, I enjoyed it all. I just wanted to make sure I said those now, a little prep for what I'm thinking as we go forward into December.
Very
Thank
good.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.